everyone, I am going to show you how to make your Charming Halloween bonus, which is super fun. And you'll notice that in your box this month you got some little rhinestones and you have some little pumpkins, and I'll use those in this design. But you should have plenty of these left over if you want to incorporate them in some of your other pieces. You should be able to do that as well. And so if you want to follow along with me, you do have the bonus as part of your step-by-step guide. But the first thing that we need to do is get our surface painted black. All right, I've got my tools out here. For this, we are going to use the brush that was included in your box. And I don't do a lot of brush work. I'm pretty traditional when it comes to dot mandalas. Some artists will use these brushes and create these beautiful line patterns in their artwork. I tend to be more traditional. I stick to dots more than anything, but I thought it would be kind of a fun thing to add to your toolbox to have the paintbrush and the brushwork as an option. We are going to use an eraser tip, so grab your eraser tip. If you're going to glue on the rhinestones and the pumpkins, you'll want your little bottle of glue, and then I've got the dotting tools that we typically use. So gather up your supplies, and then if you're going to follow along with the sample step by step, I've got black paint, purple, orange, and white. I'm going to switch the color for the second sample. I'm going to switch out the purple for the green just to shake it up because I don't want two of the exact same thing, but you can use any Halloween colors that you would like, and I'm just going to substitute green for purple this time around. All right, the first thing that you're going to want to do is get your 16-arm stencil. So I've got mine here, and an easy way, this one is shaped like a square, so I can easily find the center by just kind of making it look pretty even. But if you're having trouble finding your center, you can always draw a line corner to corner, and that's where your center will be. And then use your marking pencil to get your lines on there. All right, I'm going to try to keep this baby centered here with the sample so that you can see both as we work. I know that this one's got a little bit of glare on it. Let's see if I can put that at an angle. There we go. All right, we are going to start off with our pink tool, 10 millimeters, and we're going to add our center dot. I'm going to do green on the sample. It is purple. And then I'm going to grab my 1 millimeter stylus, which is the small end of the blue, and I'm going to alternate orange and white dots. And so I can do that by doing my north, south, east, and west with orange. And then I'm going to do a dot halfway in between. And so that will give me 8 dots with the orange, and then I can come back through with the white and add dots in the middle there. If you hear squeaking, that's my Eddie. He's got his squeaky right next to me. He does not play with toys very often, so I'm going to let him have at it. All right, so I've got those alternating orange and white. There's 16 in total. And then we're going to add 2 more rows. So I'm going to switch to my green stylus. I'm going to use the small end first for my 2.5mm dots. And I am not going to put them in between. You can if you want to, but I'm going to do these all in the same row. So what I want it to look like is wherever I have orange dots, I'm then going to add a white dot right next to it. So I'm going to start with the small end, and I'm going to add a white dot next to every orange dot. And then next to every white dot, I'm going to add an orange. So it kind of just reverses what we did in the previous row. Remember to dip and dot every single time so that your dots remain the same size. And then we are going to continue this pattern one more time. So I'm going to switch to the large end, and then I'm going to do the same thing, switching the colors. So next to every orange, I'm going to have a white. And then using a large end, next to every white, I'm going to add an orange. We're on to step 3 on the step-by-step guide. I'm going to use the blue, which is 8mm, and on the sample this is purple. Again, I'm going to use green, and I'm going to go out to this line right about here. So make sure you give yourself enough space because we are going to walk the dots around these. So you want a little room between the last row and this row. And next to every orange dot, give a little bit of room and then place a green dot. So it's basically every other line. Oops. Not getting enough paint on my tool here. There we go. So we're going to end up with 8 dots. Purple or green, whatever your color choice is. Then we're going to switch to the blue stylus, and I'm going to use the large end for the center, and we're going to walk the dots around. So I'm going to add 1 center dot with the large end. That's 1.5mm. And I'm going to clean that off, and I'm going to switch to the small end, and I'm going to walk the dots around each side. Got a little green splatter on here. That's okay. All right, so small end, we're going to walk the dots. And I'm going to do both sides, but I like to do my right side first. No, Thomas. All right, that brings us to step 4 on our guide. We're going to add some ovals. And so I'm going to use my eraser and the orange. And in the center of every one of these petals, I'm going to add one orange oval. And then I'm going to get my green stylus, the large end, and I'm going to walk the dots on either side of the oval. On my sample, I did purple. Today, I'm going to go back to the green. I'm going to use the 3mm side, the larger side, and I'm going to walk the dots around. Again, I'm going to do both sides, but I like to do one side first and then go back and do the other. All right, that brings us to step 5. And with step 5, we're going to start doing some of these lines with the paintbrush. If you've never used a paintbrush for mandalas, you might want to practice a little bit first. And it's a lot easier than it looks to do lines. Of course, you're going to want to have some water handy to clean your brush afterwards. But all you're going to have to do to make a line is you want to dip in your brush, and you want it saturated but not, not dripping. And then you can practice kind of alternating the pressure. But the first thing you want to do is have plenty of paint on there. Then you're going to start by pushing down and then lightly lifting your pressure, and that will bring it up to a point. And so when you do these, you can do them a few different ways. You can push down and pull away from you, or you can push down and pull towards you. So try it both ways and see whichever way feels most comfortable, and just practice. But what we want is a larger end, and then you lessen the pressure as you lift up. So we are going to add some of those lines going around this petal shape. And again, I'm going to use green. On my sample here, they are purple. Use whatever color you would like. And I'm going to start about halfway up the petal. So when I say a petal, I'm talking about this whole piece. So about halfway through, and I'm going to pull up to a point right where that oval is. And I'm going to do one on each side. Now, these can be tricky at first if you've never done them, so don't be afraid to practice a while, and don't be hard on yourself. They are not easy at first. You'll see mine are not perfect. This is not a design element I use a lot, but if you do practice it, you can make some really, really pretty things. So don't discount it based on your first go around. It's definitely something you have to practice a few times. The next thing I'm going to do is inside each of these little dips, I'm going to add a pumpkin, and I want mine to all face out. It doesn't matter if they face out or face in, you just kind of want to pick a direction and go with it. And so I'm going to pick my little pumpkins here, and if you're going to use them, you will need 8. That's way more than 8. And then I'll just go around and make a mess. And I just add a little dot of glue, kind of 4 at a time, right where I want them. And it really does not take very much glue to get these on there. And then I just add a pinch of glue to my stylus, or I dip it in glue since I made a mess, and then kind of use that to place them. But white glue should dry clear, so you don't have to worry about the smush through there. So I'm going to place those on. Oops. Went in the wrong direction there. All right. And I've just got a lot of extra glue, so I'm kind of just spreading that out so it's not lumpy. Making sure my pumpkins are placed exactly where I want them before it all dries. And so right now it looks messy, but again, that will dry clear. You won't see it. And so that'll be fun when it dries. And you should have enough of these that they will last you forever. Forever and ever and ever. It looks like there's just a little bit, but I swear they multiply. So feel free to use them on any of your projects. All right, I'm going to put these away. For the next step, let me center this back up. We're going to do these ovals around, and on my sample here it's purple. Again, I'm using green, so I'm going to grab my eraser. The first thing I'm going to do is add the center oval next to each pumpkin. And then on each side of that center dot, I'm going to add 2 more ovals. So we'll end up with 5. And remember to dip and dot every time. I don't know what it is about dotting, but I tend to always do one side and then go back and do the other. So it looks like I'm only making 3, but I will end up with a total of 5. All right, now we're on step 7 on the guide. I'm going to use my blue rod, which is 8mm, and orange paint, and we're going to add some teardrops at the tip of these little embellishments here. And so I want them to be fairly close because I don't want to run out of room on the short sides, but leave enough room that you can pull a slight teardrop. So we're going to add a dot, and then I'm going to use my mechanical pencil Or you can use a small stylus and just pull this into a tiny pin or a tiny teardrop. I didn't quite have enough paint on there, so it's a little thin. That's what I'm doing. There we go. And so at each tip of the embellishment here, we're going to add a little teardrop. And I don't like to do more than 1 or 2 at a time because I don't want them to dry up so that I cannot pull them. All right, once you have all of those, I'm going to go back to my eraser. I'm going to use my green paint. You can use purple depending on which design you're doing. And right after that teardrop, I'm going to add a oval. I want to keep that oval fairly close because on the short edges, I am running out of room. You will always have plenty of room on your corners when you're working on a square, but you have to be careful of your shorter edges. All right, now we're going to work some magic with these swirls. So you can see here, I'm using my paintbrush. On this design, I did purple, white, orange, and I came to a point. On this one, I'm going to do green, white, orange, but it's the same idea. So choose purple or green, whatever your color is going to be for your innermost swoops here. And again, if you need to practice, don't be afraid to practice a bit first. I am rusty, I don't do these very often, but we are basically pulling 2 lines, one on each side to start, and we're just going to work that outward with different colors. And you can see that I'm pretty rusty with these paintbrush strokes, but all right, as we move out, I'm going to switch colors. I'm just going to start slightly lower and leave a little bit of space on the edge. So use this as a reference. So next I'm going to add white. And then for my last color, I'm going to go around with orange. take your time with that last row because that's the one that's going to be on top that you're going to see the easiest. You'll see my spacing on this one is just a little different, but that's okay. Remember, every time that you follow a pattern, it's going to change a little bit depending on your spacing and your mood that day. What's most important when you're making a mandala is that you try to be the same all the way around. All right, then I'm going to add a little bit of bling. And so where each of these meet, kind of in that middle of that little bloom in the center, I'm going to add a rhinestone, and it's the same process just like with the pumpkins. I'm going to add a smidge of glue. The acrylic paint does have a little adhesive property to it, but with a rhinestone that might get bumped since there's depth to it. I like to use the glue. So I'm just going to add a little tiny dot of glue in the center of every bloom. And then I will use a little dot of glue on my stylus to pick these up. And place one in the center. Oops. So there are 8 of those. And so I am almost finished with this design. I am going to use my 8mm tool and some green paint, and I've got some room in between here. And so I'm going to add a little more green paint, first of all. One green dot in between each of these balloons. We're going to add some top dots, so I need to make sure this is dry. Before you do your top dots, you want to make sure it doesn't have to be 100% dry, but you need a pretty good film over the first layer. So I'm going to pause this video for a moment. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to come back and do some top dots. All right, for the most part, I am dry here, so I'm going to add top dots. Now, I always like to encourage you to do whatever top dots you want to do. Have fun with it. The first top dot I added was a center dot, and so our center dot was 10mm, and so I definitely want to go down in size. I'm going to use a blue, and I'm going to add top dots in black. That's what I did on my sample, but again, you can play with it and add whatever color top dots you like. But I'm going to add one right here in the center. And the blue is 8mm. Around this first circle here, I added black top dots, and I didn't add them to the center of the circle. I kind of put them towards the middle. Again, it's a personal choice where you want to add your dots, but I'm going to follow again and add these towards the middle. I think it gives it a fun little crescent look. And then these green dots I have around the edge, or the purple dots here, I added the same size. So I'm going to add a black dot in there as well. And then the last place that I added a top dot is inside each of these teardrops. And so again, you want to go down a size. I used my 8mm circle for the orange. So using blue for the orange and then purple for the top dot will work. And so I'm going to put in my dot. And then just like you did with your first layer, you add that little pin in. And especially when you're pulling pins or teardrops on a top dot, you want to make sure that underlayer is absolutely dry. And the very last thing I did was add a little rhinestone in the center. My acrylic paint is still wet there, so I might be able to just drop one in. You got to be careful if you're using the paint, if your paint is wet, that it doesn't go up over the edge of your rhinestone. Or you can wait till it's completely dry and use glue. There you have it. This is our charming Halloween design. You can see I followed the exact same steps both times. They're just a little bit different. This one looks a lot rounder just based on how I made these little blooms around the edge. These are a little more angled, but it's the exact same process. So feel free to have fun with it. Don't forget, you can always make it your own. So for example, this time I've got a lot more room in here. Maybe I could add some dots in there, but don't be afraid to shake it up and make sure you share it with me. You can always tag me at Lynn Pugh Artist, or you can post in the group. Thank you so much for joining. Happy Halloween, everyone.